Alright, so I went and see this because, you know me, I love looking at stuff about Hollywood. This one is about about how sincerity is kind of been forgotten in Hollywood movies, which I agree with. Um, how I've been talking about how everything's got to have a joke in it. There can't be any serious moments. It's got to have that self-referential, stupid humor in everything, like what we saw with Time Bandits and whatnot. So this is a video about how that is missing, and I'm really curious how they go into it.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
This is a scene from Joss Whedon's The Avengers. You've probably seen it before. In fact, you've probably laughed at it before. I know I did back in 2012, along with every single other person in the entire cinema. And realistically, how could we not? It was such a surprise, such a hilarious subversion of...
He's right. That's what made this so funny. What made this so funny is because we, as an audience, hadn't experienced this really all too much. It happened very occasionally in films before where you'd have... Okay, Falcon. It happened very occasionally in films before where you would have, the villain monologuing like this and gets interrupted by it, but, then getting interrupted and, and to get the living shit beaten out of them. You didn't see that often. And so, I don't know if he's gonna point this out, but I think this very scene was the initiation of this stupid comedy taking over. Where everything turns into a joke, where every serious moment turns into a joke. I feel like this is the start of it. Like, this was funny as a one-off at the time, because it was unexpected. It was. But they all turned into it after this. Because this probably was the funniest joke in the Avengers. It got a huge reaction. And they took that and they ran it into the ground. Big time. It's been nothing but that ever since. Ads? Okay, I will wait. I will not unpause it yet. And I also just want to say, this was the start of Loki also being a joke. 5. Wow. Thank you, Seamus. And somebody tell World of Chaos to refresh. Someone tell Chaos to refresh. Thank you, Seamus. So that's another thing is this moment in the Avengers is when Loki stopped being a serious character. This is when the MCU took away Loki's threat. Because every Loki after this, Loki in the films and the TV series after this, Loki is pathetic. He wasn't terrible in the Dark World. He was kind of conniving, so he was okay, but otherwise, like in the Loki TV show, he was pathetic. Like, really fucking pathetic. He was a genuine threat in the original Thor and in this movie. He was a genuine threat because of how smart and conniving he was. And after this, he wasn't anymore. Well, Falcon, I know. Believe me, I know. And that's kind of what I'm raging about. Yeah. I've been falling for 30 minutes, or literally the entirety of the Loki series. Like, for one, admitting Thor Dark World you could see Loki's cunning and intelligence, which was a core part of the character. That's what made Loki so dangerous. And that's the only time you ever see it. And instead we get stupid humor.
Of the classic villain monologue. I mean, think about it. It's literally the filmmakers picking up all the serious tropes we've become accustomed to over the past 100 years, and saying to the audience, hey, you and I have both seen this scene thousands of times before, right? We both know what you've come to expect from this stuff, so how about we just throw this formula around like a ragdoll and try something new? And in the moment, this seemed like a really exciting proposition. I mean, come on, an era where...
And I'm gonna point out, they did the exact same fucking thing with the first Captain Marvel movie. They literally did the exact same fucking thing. Where, in the end, Captain Marvel approaches the big bad guy, he starts monologuing about, come on and fight me, and in the middle of him talking, she literally punches him through a fucking mountain. It's the exact same fucking thing. Yeah, Jurgen, I do too. I wish they kept him smart. Because that's what made him dangerous. It's what made him powerful, is he was incredibly smart and cunning. But no, they have to make him a joke. Because modern Hollywood. Alistair, watch me.
Stories are sentient, an era where movies know they are movies and which can therefore create this new age relationship between storyteller and audience, one which is interactive.
Birdman. Did anybody see this? Because this is not this is sincere. So first and foremost, this is not a superhero movie. Okay? This is not a superhero movie. This was a drama. So Michael Keaton plays an actor who played the character of Birdman in, I can't remember if it was a movie or TV series. So the entire movie is a drama. He is an actor. This was a character that he played. What this scene is a delusion. He's having a delusion of basically the Birdman persona that he played is talking to him, and it's all in his head. And the whole concept is he's an actor, he's doing a off-Broadway show, and it's all about him trying to put this thing together and get it off the ground while dealing with essentially a budding psychosis throughout the movie, where he has like an inner voice that is this character's voice, which is cold and cruel and harsh. So this is not a superhero movie right here. This is a pure drama. So I'm not sure why he's putting this in here. But that's what this is for context.
Two-sided, which knows our expectations and therefore knows how to play with and subvert them. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, another Wheatonism.
Well,
yeah. Do you know how many people were pissed at this scene? So many people were so fucking pissed at this scene because of this. Because I can't remember if because this was Rian Johnson. This was fucking Rian Johnson doing his subverting expectations bullshit. And this scene is one scene that is going to live in infamy with Star Wars. Yeah, bury the past. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Possibly go wrong. Well, it turns out a few things. Lots of things, actually. Let me start by revisiting a story I briefly told in my recent video on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and why they remain virtually untouchable 20 years on. For some reason, I missed out on these movies throughout my childhood. I don't know why. It just never occurred to me that I should watch them. So by the time I did eventually sit down to view the trilogy, I think I was 17, and by then was very much accustomed to the cynical, self-aware, ironic style of storytelling which had grown throughout the 2010s to dominate movies, and to a lesser extent television as well. Now, to this day, I'm pretty ashamed.
We're not even
going
gonna
to
get into that, Alistair.
But anyway, Fellowship of the Ring begins, we hear Cate Blanchett's narration, and I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. It's a bit overly serious, but whatever. And we get to the bit with Sauron, and we see this villain who kind of looks like he's from Power Rangers, and Galadriel is talking about a place called Mount Doom, so obviously I brace myself for the joke, for the moment where this ridiculous tension is broken, and it just doesn't come. So I think, fine, that was the prologue, whatever. You can't really make jokes in the prologue. Then we get the whole Shire sequence, and I see all these little guys running around the place, smoking weed and making these weird faces. It all feels rather camp, rather silly, especially once the wizard in the pointy hat arrives, and so once again I brace myself for the self-referential joke, for the film to acknowledge how bizarre this all is. And once again, no such joke occurs. And this basically happens for the entire trilogy. Like, you think I would have gotten used to the tone after a few scenes, but no. My brain had been so molded over time by so much postmodern wink.
And that's really telling. What this content creator is saying, how when he first went into Lord of the Rings, and he was sitting there waiting for the joke. He's seeing all of these scenes, and he's like, okay, where's the joke? Where's the joke? That is very telling about Hollywood in its current state. In that Hollywood has gotten so bad that young people, when they watch a serious movie like Lord of the Rings, are constantly going, where's the joke? I'm so used to there being a stupid joke. Where's the joke? And there isn't one. They don't know how to handle serious dramas. And it's not like Lord of the Rings did not make any kind of a joke. You know, they did. They had a little bit of humor here and there. You know, no film, no matter how serious it is, you know, has no humor in it. It had a little bit of humor, but it didn't have that stupid, slapsticky, wink wink at the audience. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, World. It's Gimli had jokes, but they were not. They were jokes that worked in context of the seriousness. They were not constantly winking at the audience, going, "You get it, audience? Huh? Huh? You get it?" They weren't constantly doing that. Second tactile. No, I'm not duplicating myself. I actually probably could, but I'm not going to.
Wink, nudge, nudge storytelling, that it could just not recognize sincerity. Now, let's actually stop for a second and think about how crazy that is, because sincerity is not some outlandish storytelling device, only used by those daring few writers and directors. No, sincerity, since the dawn of time, has been the very essence of storytelling itself. Like, imagine having this conversation with someone even 50 years ago. They probably wouldn't.
No, Chaos, I haven't, because Maxor is so chaotic. I honestly don't feel like I could react to him and do justice to the reaction. He is so chaotic. I just don't think I could do it, and feel like I'm doing the video justice. And Xanax, yes, exactly right. It is not so much. I guess it is kind of breaking the fourth wall, but not. Like, there is breaking the fourth wall, but there's not. It's like they're making stupid jokes, and behind the scenes, they're doing the wink thing to the audience. Red Bastard Maxor is a content creator on YouTube who reviews video games, And his style is absolute fucking chaos. It is wild and chaotic editing. Yeah, exactly. You don't react to his videos, you experience them, and that is all. Yeah.
Didn't even understand what you were talking about. For millennia, stories were told to convey truths, to share human experiences, to evoke genuine emotion. From ancient myths and legends, to classic literature, to television and cinema. Sincerity
I'm gonna disagree with one point there. Stories were not told for truth. I'm going to disagree with that. Um, these stories are not necessarily told to speak truths. Stories may be told to impart lessons. Not necessarily truths, but lessons. Um, you know, I will speak on behalf of myself in terms of story writing. Speaking on behalf of myself, I tell a story because it's a story that I want to tell, and while there may be some salient points that I wish to make with the story that I'm telling, my personal purpose when writing a story is to entertain. I want to write a story that is entertaining and that is a story I want to tell. I do not write a story with the intent of trying to force any viewpoints at somebody. I simply wish to tell a good story. It's a story that's in my head that I want to tell. And that's it. So, you can tell the story to provide a lesson, not necessarily a truth. Truth, you look for in textbooks, not stories. That's where you look for truths. You look for lessons in the story. That's my opinion.
Sincerity has been the core element that binds the audience to the narrative. It's the fundamental ingredient that allows us to resonate so deeply with stories. Sincerity is what makes characters relatable, struggles compelling, and triumphs uplifting. Now look, I'm not saying that every story has to be this serious thing which dramatically changes our lives. There is absolutely a place for humor, for irony, for stories that don't take themselves too seriously, for movies which know
Hot Fuzz is a movie where the humor fucking works. Hot Fuzz is all humor. But you know what? The writing is so tight, it works fantastically. It is a fantastic comedy because it doesn't shy away from seriousness. That's the thing. The Cornetto trilogy has its seriousness and doesn't shy away from it. When it's time for funny, it's time for funny. When it's time for serious, they stay serious until the moment is over. They don't interrupt it. And that's what makes it work. Hey, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. All of them, the whole Cornetto trilogy was fantastic.
Know they are movies and have fun with that premise. In fact, this kind of storytelling can be incredibly refreshing and entertaining when done right. However, when this becomes the default, when every film in the cinema feels the need to follow trend by
I did not see
shying
this
away
movie,
from
thank
earnest
God.
emotions or genuine stakes, a lot of problems tend to arise. Problems which films with a more sincere approach would just never run into. First of all, that amazing thrill of having your expectations subverted, that rush of excitement you get when a movie is meta, self-aware, ironic, well, it has extremely diminishing returns. Like I said earlier,
Yes.
everyone in the movie theater laughed back in.
Well, okay. I'm going to rephrase what he said. The meta humor has diminishing returns if you overuse it, which is what has been happening. Meta humor works as long as you aren't constantly beating your audience over the head with it. Just like any good writer knows, you have to use certain facets of writing sparingly. Otherwise, it loses its effect. Kind of like the rants I make on how overusing words that intrinsically have power lose their effect. Well, Deadpool being the exception, of course, Alex, because Deadpool, the very nature of the character and the movies, audiences go in with the expectation that is completely nonsensical. And that nonsensical nature is fucking hilarious. So the reason why the Deadpool is the exception, it's not so much being the anti-hero. It's not necessarily that. It's because the audience, for those that are not familiar with him in the comic, the first movie did an excellent job of setting up, this is Deadpool, this is what he's like, and people loved it. So when Deadpool 2 came out, they went in knowing what to expect, and goddamn it, he delivered, and it was still funny. And people still enjoyed it. Just like Deadpool and Wolverine. They knew what to expect from Deadpool, they got it, and they were happy. Yeah, and I mean, him breaking the fourth wall is 100% part of his character, always has been. So, Ark, I think after the first Deadpool movie, there was enough, because Deadpool 1 did so fucking fantastically in the box office, a lot of, different varied news agencies talked about his character, so it became very well known that he knows he's in a comic/movie. And by the time Deadpool 2 came around, everybody pretty much knew, okay, yeah, he knows he's in a movie. This is just part of his character. But again, that is, Deadpool's films are careful uses of this kind of writing. Selkin, I agree. Deadpool 2, Deadpool 2 was not as good as Deadpool 1, but I still greatly enjoyed it. I still very much enjoyed Deadpool 2. It had better action, I think. I feel like Deadpool 2 had better action than Deadpool 1. But yeah, overall, it wasn't as good as the first Deadpool, but it was still very enjoyable. The problem is Deadpool is a movie series where you go in expecting it. It's the reason you're going to see the movies in the first place. Red Bastard, I'm not even gonna get into how they should have, actually used Vanessa as copycat. I won't get into that. I'm guessing they might not have been able to because of a rights issue. I'm guessing that's why they probably didn't have Vanessa actually be copycat. There was probably a rights issue with Marvel that Fox did not have the rights to. That is my guess. Who knows? Oh yes, Bobby, absolutely. Deadpool and Wolverine was the best of the series. 100%, I agree. But the point I'm making is that you go into a Deadpool movie expecting it. Whereas a lot of these other movies, you shouldn't be. A lot of these other movies, you go in not expecting the stupid humor, and you end up getting it. So now you have the generalized audience going, I don't want to see this movie anymore because these are supposed to be serious characters and they're acting like morons. And that's why people are not going to see like MCU movies anymore. Or why they don't care about the Star Wars stuff anymore. Because they're sick and tired of the stupid humor, amongst other things. And that's kind of probably what he's going to be talking about here. Is it's getting injected into everything and nothing is serious anymore.
2012 when Hulk picked up Loki and threw him around like a ragdoll. But I imagine if you watched that scene today, it just wouldn't be that funny. But why? Well, first of all, the joke has been done a million times since, in both every Marvel movie and basically everywhere else. But on top of this, every single one of these self-referential jokes are essentially the same, just with slightly different coats of paint. Like, sure, you can subvert expectations, break the fourth wall, play on pre-established tropes in as many different ways as you like, but let's face it, the joke is pretty much this. Hey, you're watching a film, and
And, by the way, this joke worked! Anyone want to know why this joke worked? Because this was a joke! And the joke is, Deadpool did this very thing in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. In the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, Deadpool did this. It was the scene at the beginning of the movie where he comes out of the elevator and there's like a room full of armed men and they just open up on him with AKs. And Wade just runs through the room spinning his swords just like this, either blocking or slicing through the rounds and doesn't get hit once. Now in the Deadpool movie, he does the same thing and he gets the ever-living shit shot out of him. And it ends by him going, wow, those bullets are really fast, and he's got bullet holes all over him. That's the joke. And it works because it references the first movie where Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool, only not the proper Deadpool. And so that's the referential joke. And it worked because of that very reason. Oh yeah, the X-Men Origin Games was fucking awesome, Alex. That was awesome.
But let's face it, the joke is
It was a
pretty
proper
much
Wolverine
this.
game.
Hey, you're watching a film, and we know it. Like, that's it. That's the whole joke, done over and over and over again. And a huge problem with this formula, other than it becoming stale very quickly due to ridiculous overexposure, and it not being that clever or funny in the first place, is that it makes what is supposed to be unpredictable and subversive, predictable, and boring. And in my opinion, the single best example of this is Thor Ragnarok, a film which I personally find to
Alex, I don't have much hope for the Insomniac one. I really don't. They've already shown the model for Jean Grey and she's hideous. I do not have any hope for the Insomniac one at all. And
the single best example
what I was about
of
to say
this
here,
is Thor Ragnarok.
some people seem to really like Thor Ragnarok here. I didn't. I did not really like Thor Ragnarok. Like, I saw it and it was okay. I did not like, because this one right here was the beginning of the stupid humor for Thor. Up to this point, before this movie, Thor, the Avengers, Thor the Dark World, Thor was a serious character. He was stoic and he was serious. Yes, there was a little bit of humor. This was Taika Waititi saying, what if we turned the character of Thor into a fucking moron? That is what this was. This was Taika Waititi saying, what if we took the character of Thor, who was such a serious and stoic character, and what if we just turned him into an absolute idiot? And they did. They turned him into a fucking idiot for this whole movie, and that's the character trait that stuck. He had a little bit of seriousness in Endgame. He did have a little bit of seriousness in Endgame. And then, no, sorry, Infinity War. My apologies. Infinity War. He had in Infinity War, they gave him some seriousness. And then in Endgame, yeah, they went they went ham on the comedy for this one, for Endgame, and then for Love and Thunder. Because again, Taika Waititi was in charge. I fucking hate Taika Waititi's humor. I absolutely fucking hate Taika Waititi's humor. Because it's stupid comedy. And it doesn't work in the context of Thor. It's taking a character that people liked and turning him into an idiot. And I hated Love and Thunder. I did not like Ragnarok. I did not like what they did to him in Endgame. I've got issues with Endgame. Endgame, in generally speaking, was a decent, okay movie. I don't think Endgame it is the masterpiece everybody makes it out to be. I really don't. I thought it was fine. You know, the end fight was fine. I definitely have issues with Endgame, and I don't think it's the masterpiece everybody makes it out to be. And you know, with Love and Thunder, I mean, Spectre, do yourself a favor, don't. It's, again, Thor being an idiot. I mean, sad, yeah, trauma does things to people, but if you notice, Thor was the only one that went down that route out of all of them. Thor was the only one that went fat, drunk, and stupid. Right, exactly. He's not a genius, but he's not a moron. And they turned Thor into a joke. And I hate it. It is a thanks I hate it moment from this movie on forward.
Ragnarok, a film which I personally find to be rather overrated. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like every single line or joke in Thor Ragnarok is some meta-ironic quip which winks at the audience. But a lot of them are, and they're so frequent that it doesn't take long for you to predict when they're coming. Again, because they're essentially all the same joke. Like, the movie starts with yet another villain monologue, and we have this joke where Thor...
And by the way, by the MCU's own logic, this should have never happened. By the MCU's own logic, he should have changed the Hulk just before he hit the ground. He would not have even hit the ground. Because, I mean, we shouldn't have even seen this. But they did this because they had to do the subvert the expectations bullshit. They had to do this he did this very thing in the Incredible Hulk movie where he changed on the way where Edward Norton did it better. The Edward Norton movie did better. He jumps from the helicopter, and he's expecting to change on the way down, and he doesn't. And right before he hits, he goes, "Oh shit," and hits the ground, but disappears in a cloud of smoke and a hole in the ground. And who emerges but the Hulk, giving you the idea that the split second before he hit, he changed to the Hulk, and the Hulk wouldn't let him die. This one, he fucking hits the ground so hard, he should actually be a puddle. If he didn't change to the Hulk. He should be a fucking puddle of goo. But of course they have to do this subverting expectations. And say, oh, we'll jump out of the helicopter, he'll actually hit the ground and not change, and people will think, oh, he's dead. When we already know he won't, because he actually said he put a gun in his mouth and the other guy caught the bullet. So, again, taking away the seriousness of the situation.
With yet another villain monologue, and we have this joke where Thor slowly spins away from the villain, and yeah, it makes your nose exhale slightly, maybe. And then the film gets back to the villain monologue, and you think, alright, well, let's hear what the guy has to say. And then they just do the exact same joke again, like 10 seconds later, and you just think, what's even the point of this? If you're just going to pull the rug out from under me every single time, I'm going to very quickly pick up on what you're doing and learn when to jump over said rug. Does that metaphor make sense? Like, the thing that made this tone somewhat work in the beginning is that it was surprising and unpredictable. But I'm afraid to say that that ship sailed long ago, leaving us with... well, what exactly? To be honest with you, I'm not really sure, but whatever it is, it feels quite nasty, you know? Like a trick is being played on us, like we're being gaslit by someone who doesn't really respect the audience, nor the material they're responsible for, which is kind of...
Yeah, that's exactly. It's you now have screenwriters who don't respect their audience. You have screenwriters that have effectively infantilized their audience. And they think, oh, the audience needs a stupid joke. Every 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever formula they're currently using. Because they don't think that because either they don't think or they don't want their audiences to be able to handle seriousness. I mean, there's the argument to be made that people that modern the quote unquote modern audiences with the modern society can't handle anything serious because they are too soft. They are such snowflakes that anything serious quote unquote triggers them and they can't handle it. That argument could be made, which I would respond with, so what? Toughen them up. If you cannot handle a serious moment, how the fuck do you expect to function in society? And I feel like that is what a lot of modern writing is doing. it's infantilizing audiences because they think that they can't handle seriousness and not lose their shit. And it's not a good thing. To me, it's like stupid like what? They humor should not be injected into everything. It absolutely should not. There needs to be seriousness because what we're seeing is without seriousness, we're getting what we get. If you remove seriousness from the equation, the humor is no longer funny. You need seriousness. You need sincerity to balance out the humor. If you don't have the seriousness, if you don't have the sincerity, if you don't have the darkness to balance out the humor and actual darkness, that is either damn dead serious or fucking terrifying, to balance out the humor means nothing. The humor just it sounds stupid and makes no goddamn sense because it's not balancing out the seriousness. And that's what we're missing. We're lacking the seriousness in movies, especially Marvel, anything Disney related these days. We're lacking the seriousness to balance out even the stupid humor. If we had that, then the stupid humor might not hit any as poorly. And the only way it's going to get fixed is if you get rid of modern writing, bring in your old school writers. You need to bring in old school writers. Get rid of all the modern writers in Disney. Disney needs to basically literally cut bait with every single one of their writers and bring it over. Yeah, exactly. Hell, Dark Knight and Batman Begins were great for a reason. Dark Knight, I do think, was superior. Dark Knight was the greatest of the Batman trilogy, hands down. It was the greatest, and it was a dark, serious movie. There was probably a little bit of humor in there, not much at all, but it was serious. Hell, look at the early Marvel movies, pre-Endgame. The Marvel movies pre-Endgame had humor. They did. Iron Man. Holy fuck. Tony was like, look at Tony. Tony was basically a jokester. He didn't take fuck all seriously. But you know what? It still had some serious moments. It absolutely had serious moments, which made the moments where Tony was being humorous all that more amusing. Tony joking around in one scene, and then in the next scene, flying off to the Middle East and decimating the army that was terrorizing that town, and then coming back and making a joke about, okay, admit it, this isn't the worst position you found me in. It worked because you had that serious scene to offset the humor. And modern movies, especially in Disney, are not doing it. There's nothing to offset the humor to actually make it funny.
It's surreal to say out loud, but that's where we now find ourselves. Like, there's this one film which I'm sure no one's ever heard of before called The Last Jedi. I think it's the 8th episode of this epic space opera saga thing, and there's this one joke in it where we see this huge ship landing, and the cinematography and the music seem to be leading us to some big reveal. And then it turns out to be an iron. Like, it's an iron. Ironing some clothes.
Rian Johnson subverting your expectations, chat. Are you subverted? I mean, his was also the one with fucking Hux being thrown around like a stupid rag doll. And Hux just like squeaking the entire time. Yeah, but Alex, the Transformers movies, the Transformers movie were never really considered to be taken serious. Transformers movie was all about the spectacle. All of the Transformers movie were 100% about the spectacle, so the humor in those wasn't as egregious, I would say. I wouldn't call the humor in the Transformer movies egregious like what we're seeing here, because it was the whole purpose of it was the spectacle, was seeing the Transformers just beating the shit out of each other, transforming. So, yeah. Okay, Bobcat, have a nice sleep. Oh yeah, Alex, yeah. Well, Disney not only overdid it, they inject it into scenes that it doesn't work at all. That's the thing. They put it into scenes where it's flat out doesn't work.
Now look, I can actually see how someone could find this moment kind of witty, and look, I'm not gonna argue against that. However, I would argue that the brief laugh this moment may perhaps offer is nowhere near worth what it takes away. Because this joke basically feels like the creators of The Last Jedi, whoever they may be, making fun of us and punishing us for taking any of this seriously. It almost feels nihilistic. In fact, no, what am I talking about? It is nihilistic. A moment like this wouldn't feel out of place in Spaceballs. You know, the film that was made to take the piss out of Star Wars. And now it's appearing in the real thing. Like, this is the point we've arrived at. There's a great video essay you should watch by The Closer Look about The Last Jedi's comedy, and in it they continuously bring up this word bathos, which basically means an anticlimax created by a lapse in mood from the sublime to the trivial or ridiculous. It's a film presenting us with something that could potentially be rather emotional or epic or dramatic, before pulling it away at the last second and going, we got you. You thought it was going to be serious, but we were one step ahead of you. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's basically appeared in every single modern blockbuster created within the Hollywood system. And it is...
And by the way, chat, there is a fucking great little short on YouTube that takes this particular scene from Multiverse of Madness, and the other scene where Wanda is confronting the Illuminati. And in this scene, instead of Reed Richards, you have Deadpool. And in the other scene, it's all the Illuminati standing down there, and Deadpool sneaking up behind Wanda. We'll pull it up after this. It's really fucking good.
And it is this type of joke which I believe to have caused the single greatest problem of this entire meta-ironic era which Hollywood currently finds itself in. You know what I was saying earlier about how sincerity is the core element which binds audiences to stories? The fundamental ingredient that allows us to resonate so deeply with cinema?
Chaos, I've reacted to others. I've reacted to Demolition Ranch. I just reacted to one of his recently. And I also react to like Graham Thumb, and we also react to what was it? Administrative results. So I do react to more than just Kentucky Ballistics.
Well, then it would make sense that Insincerity achieves the opposite, creating a barrier between the audience and the story that they're watching. It's funny really, because a movie acknowledging that it's a movie is usually referred to as breaking the fourth wall, yet I would argue that a better term would be strengthening or refortifying the fourth wall.
I am not now,
it's not yet. The more frequently this wall is acknowledged, the more sturdy and opaque this barrier between audience and...
Okay, here is a good example of where this kind of thing works. So this movie that they're looking at right here, this is Cabin in the Woods. So this was, Grumpy. This was Cabin in the Woods. This was, I think this was this Joss Whedon? Was this Joss Whedon who did this? I think it was. This one was a good movie because the Subversion was done very smart. This particular movie was done where they took the horror trope and turned it on its head in a really clever way. Well, Alistair, okay, Falcon, I'll see you tomorrow. Alistair, I'm sorry you didn't like it. And that's fine. It's not that, everybody's got their own tastes. And I love Cabin in the Woods. 'Cause it took the it took the horror trope and turned it on its head in a big way, but did it in a way that was very interesting. It was very interesting and was something new. Okay, well, I mean, Alistair, I can totally understand why you didn't like it. If you're not someone that likes the horror genre, I totally get why you wouldn't have liked this. You do kind of need to at least like horror movies for this to be a good watch for you. It makes total sense. I get it. Um, but but it's I don't and but I don't I will take it I will disagree with you on one thing. I will disagree with you on it being a parody. I don't consider Cabin in the Woods a parody because a parody would imply that it's taking the horror genre and turning it into a stupid and severely injecting stupid comedy into it. I will say that. Yes, there was humor in it, but it wasn't overly done. It wasn't. It was about the same amount of humor as you'd get with any, slasher movie. Um, this basically, this was when subverting expectations meant something. This is where Cabin in the Woods was where subverting expectations actually meant something, and it was done well. So, like, I thought Cabin in the Woods was a great movie because the way it did. Now, I will say, this particular scene here, lost punch for me. This particular scene where he tries to jump the chasm and hits the wall, it definitely lost its punch because much earlier in the movie, we see a bird fly into this wall and die. So we as the audience already knew this was coming. I think if they'd left that bird flying into the wall scene out of it, this would have had a much more stark reaction. So this is one scene out of it where I was like, you could have done it differently in that. But this is like, and you had sincerity in this movie. Like, the characters made some jokes, but the jokes weren't like rapid fire, and like there was absolute seriousness in this movie.
And film becomes, the more we all come to expect this ironic style of storytelling, the less we are going to want to emotionally invest in films in the first place. Because what's the point if every movie is just going to make fun of itself?
I never saw the Barbie movie. I've heard that the Barbie movie was a crap ton of feminist schlock. From what I've heard. I had no interest in seeing it. It is not my style of movie. I mean, I know it did tremendous. I know it, did outstanding at the box office, but the only thing I ever heard from it was just very preachy feminist agenda crap. That's what I heard about it. Yeah, where the only way to free the Barbies was to have a woman from the real world come in and basically preach feminism to them. So, and okay,
make fun of you for ever thinking that it might take something seriously. This is why my initial reaction to The Lord of the Rings was one of confusion, because I was
let's see, I think what really rubbed me the wrong way is the traditional killer is the punishment for the character's sins, but in that movie they were good people. They're basically, for lack of better. Well, Alistair, I do believe that for Cabin in the Woods, that was kind of the point. I believe that was the point. It wasn't that the people in the movie that was another thing where it was kind of flipped on its head because the jock was actually very smart. That's like they were kind of flipping on its head. The jock was actually smart. He was I think a philosophy major on a full academic scholarship. The girl, we didn't find out too much about her, but she wasn't the bimbo. Like they were the company working behind the scenes in that movie was deliberately skewing things to turn them into the stereotypical archetypes that they needed to be. And it was all done to please their quote-unquote gods, which is supposed to be an anachronism for the audience. Like, the old gods is supposed to be a representation of the movie audience. And so they twisted and they twisted and they altered the characters' personalities with chemicals and chemistry to make them fit the stereotypes they were supposed to have. So that was kind of the point, is they didn't actually have sins. This company forced said sins upon them, and that's what made what this company was doing so horrible, is these people were good people, and they were attributing sins to them that they didn't actually have to please the old gods, which is supposed to be us, the audience, because the traditional slasher audience wants to see the horny teenagers get punished, because back then, if you were a horny teenager, the theory being like you were sinning and so you should be punished. Granted, nobody actually thought that way, but that was the idea behind it. And so Cabin in the Woods twisted that, and it was showing how the company was twisting the individuals involved to fit that ideology to please the old gods. So I completely understand what you were saying, but that was the entire point. That was the actual point of the movie and how the characters were portrayed. So, okay, Dragon, have a good night. Thanks for coming by. Oh yeah, well, Chaos, absolutely they did.
I was so used to films like these gaslighting me and making fun of me and making fun of...
Point of fact, Bobby, there are two very cheesy, very extremely low-budget movies. You can actually watch them on Tubi that are literally called Don't Fuck in the Woods. There are two extremely low-budget, super cheesy movies that are literally titled Don't Fuck in the Woods and Don't Fuck in the Woods 2. And it is all about how this group of, I don't even know if they're teenagers or if they're actually like in their 20s. Like, they go camping or something, and if they fuck in the woods, they die. And of course they did. So, yeah, and Alistair, I totally get that. Yeah, if you're not a horror fan, yeah, you were not the target audience. It didn't, like you said, it didn't resonate with you, and I get that. And because it didn't resonate with you, you didn't like it. Totally get it. I completely understand. And like I said before, understandable, you didn't like it. It's not your particular type of movie. Everybody has movies that they just simply don't like. That's just how it goes. You can't like everything.
of themselves and consistently avoiding actual stakes or real emotions. When I was eventually met with Sincerity from a major studio blockbuster, I thought this must be some sort of trick. I'm not going to offer up my heart to this trilogy, to this experience, because, well, I've been hurt so many times in the past, and I know how this goes. The second I
don't know if that's where it got its start, Rat Bastard. I'd say it's probably one of the more popular iterations, where the teenagers, the counselors in the Friday the 13th movies were getting killed because they were fucking instead of watching her son, who drowned because they were busy fucking. That's probably one of the more popular iterations. I don't know for sure if that's how the trope got started or not. And Niki, you're absolutely right. Modern Hollywood is so dedicated to falsely try and make something that they claim is for everybody when it's not. That's the thing. It's because that's the thing. It's not that it's faux pas to recognize that there is a target audience. It's a faux pas to make a movie for a target audience that is not severely left-leaning, i.e., uh, very strongly LGBT or girl power. That's the faux pas, is to make something that essentially men would like. That's the faux pas, is to make anything men would like. I know what you did last summer, yeah. Well, that's very, in terms of paying for the sins, that's absolutely on the nose. 100%.
I get invested in any of this. Some hobbit is going to come out of a bush, smoking his pipe, and laugh at me for taking any of this seriously. And that, my friends,
I do too,
should
Nihi.
just
I
not
do
be
too.
happening. Like, that is such an unnatural response to a piece of art. So, what is the solution to all of this? Because like I've already said, it's not that I think that this meta sort of humour doesn't have any place in modern cinema. Well, I have a few ideas. First of all, I don't really think movies can have their cake and eat it too when it comes to this stuff. Like, I find it so bizarre when the Deadpool movies, for example, which, let's be honest, essentially exist to make fun of superhero films, to break the fourth wall, and to have Ryan Reynolds make a ton of dick jokes. I find it so bizarre when even those movies are suddenly trying to form some sort of emotional connection. Like, no.
Dude, be really fucking careful right now, because you do not fuck with my Deadpool movies. The purpose of Deadpool is he's fucking insane. And he recognizes that he's in a movie full of comic book tropes. And yeah, he's gonna have his serious moments. I mean, Jesus. No, this is just a moment. I'm not gonna go on a huge fucking rant. But, like, Deadpool has his serious moments. Like, Deadpool 2, the ending of it. Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, Jorgen. This scene in Deadpool 2 killed me. No, it wasn't the beginning, Taurus. It wasn't the beginning, it was this scene at the end. Oh, I cried so hard at this. And you know what? How many of you saw this in the theater, Deadpool 2? How many of you saw it in the theater? Show of hands. How many of you saw in the theater? And that's what I'm getting to, Jorgen. You did? Okay. Because, reason why I say that, the theater version had the acoustic, like the MTV Unplugged version of Take On Me, which is hauntingly beautiful. It is hauntingly beautiful. The unplugged version of Take On Me. And it played in this scene. This scene had the unplugged version of Take On Me. And it was beautiful. I'm tearing up now just remembering it. It was a beautiful scene because of that musical selection. In the DVD version, they switched the song. It was no longer the Take On Me Unplugged. They switched it to a softer version of Ashes. They switched this in the DVD version. They switched this to a softer, more acoustic version of, if I think it was the acoustic version of Ashes, which was the theme song playing during the credits of Deadpool 2. It didn't have anywhere even close to the same impact. And hi, fighter pilot, welcome. So, and this was, oh my god. Yeah, it had me crying. I'm freaking ready to cry right now thinking about it. It was a beautiful scene. And this is in Deadpool 2. This was in fucking Deadpool 2. So, yeah, dude. Do not fuck with my Deadpool movies. Do not fuck with my Deadpool movies.
No. Any attempt at sincerity feels so out of place when you've spent the entire runtime taking absolutely
Wrong, Nef. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So, fuck. Well, this scene right here is what Wade was working towards the whole fucking movie. It absolutely made sense. This is what Wade was striving for the whole movie. To be with Vanessa. Shit. Oh, shit. It made absolute sense. Because it was his whole driving goal for the whole movie. So he could be with the woman he loved. So it 100% made sense. And fuck you for saying it didn't.
nothing seriously. Another Hollywood franchise which I think has sadly run into this problem is the Fast and Furious films. Now look, I know these movies, and most of the other movies I've spoken about in this video, are not exactly the pinnacle of cinema, but I do think that the Fast and Furious series is a pretty interesting case study when it comes to a franchise gaining self-consciousness, if you will, halfway through its lifespan. This series
Okay. Fast and the Furious movies are a case of they felt like they had to keep ramping things up every movie. First movie had at least Ashes was not bad for the scene. Allow me to rephrase. Ashes was not bad for the scene. It wasn't as powerful as Take on Me. Take on Me made that scene 100 times more powerful. That's what I meant by it. And I don't know if I would consider it sequelitis. But the Fast and the Furious, like the first movie, is the only one where there was a measure of reality. Yes, some liberties were taken, obviously. But starting with the first sequel, they went crazier and crazier and literally they kept, dialing it up to 11, dialing it up to 12, dialing it up to 13 with every subsequent sequel until basically they became like crazy superhero movies. They got bad before. They got quote unquote bad before Paul unfortunately passed. Unfortunately, before Paul passed, they got bad. Unfortunately. So there's no way. But that's kind of the fun behind them. Is the whole purpose for a lot of people going to see Fast and Furious is okay. Let's see how fucking crazy things get with this one. That kind of became the whole reason why people went to go see that. It's like, all right, I want to see just how batshit crazy they get this time. Which is fine. Because you know what? The Fast and Furious franchise embraced it. They realized probably after about like the fourth episode, after the fourth one, they realized, okay, this is getting batshit crazy. Let's just fucking lean into it. And they did. They leaned into it and just got crazier and crazier and crazier. And that's the fun of it. It was.
begun in the early 2000s as your standard illegal street racing Point Break ripoff. However, the series, in my opinion, did not hit its peak until its 5th installment, which came out in 2011, 1 year before Joss Whedon changed everything with the Avengers. Fast 5, for me, is not just the zenith of this franchise, but honestly, one of the best dumb action movies of the 21st century. Why? Well, because Fast and Furious was not yet this huge meme. The creators were not yet in on the joke. Yes, this film is stupid, but it also takes itself pretty seriously. The thing moves at a great pace, the set pieces are explosive and well directed, the characters are likable, but most importantly, it's earnest. It's not trying to make fun of itself. And because of this, it's actually rather wholesome. You find yourself really buying into all the vehicular, masculine poetry in a way you probably just wouldn't ever expect to. And then the mid-2010s happened.
I know.
The Fast and Furious franchise became aware of its own existence, of its own legend, of its own meme. The creators got in on the joke, and it lost what made it special.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think when I used Mix It Up for the When I used Mix Up for the head pat, unfortunately, all the other channel points bugged out. I've got to try and fix it. Hopefully I can fix it tomorrow or something. I hope.
In the first place. It became a parody of itself. And yeah, that kind of thing has happened before, but they still try to do the emotional stuff and it just doesn't work. It doesn't land because you can't really have it both ways. Or should I say, it's very difficult to have it both ways. I do think that on the rare occasion, when executed properly, you can have like one self-aware joke in your film. One instance where your movie recognizes that it's a movie, the audience laughs, and then we move on from it. A great example of this, sticking to the whole villain monologue thing, is this moment from The Incredibles.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't...
Now, this isn't the deepest, most meta joke ever told before, but it is funny. Why? Well, one, because it's really not that self-referential, like, let's be real, this is a pretty innocent joke. And two, the rest of The Incredibles is sincere. Sure, it has jokes, of course, it's a Pixar movie, but nothing too self-aware, nothing which takes you out of the experience, which stops you from emotionally investing into the stakes of the story. So again, I do think that you can include the odd meta joke in your movie if you really want to, but it needs to be handled incredibly delicately. Of course, what's probably easier than this is to just go full Charlie Kaufman and completely embrace the art of meta storytelling, or go full Tarantino and wholeheartedly embrace the art of homage. And I have indeed had tons of fun with films like these, but if you're not willing to go all the way with this stuff, perhaps just stick to the original source of storytelling. Pure, unfiltered sincerity. This doesn't mean abandoning
it's
humor
just
altogether,
a fun way for you guys to enjoy the
that
stream, to do stuff in the stream, that's all. And I'm gonna work on fixing it. I probably need to like add him in to mix it up or something. So I'm going to try to get him fixed for you. So hopefully next stream they'll be functional.
To this sincere approach. Movies like Top Gun Maverick and June Part 2
because you guys have been wanting the head pat, so I'm keeping the head pat, and I'll just have to try and fix the rest.
Emotionally resonant.
It's okay.
The audience response to both of those films says a lot about what we truly want from this beautiful medium deep down. Perhaps we'll never get another Lord of the Rings, a series you'll be glad to hear I now love and appreciate with all my heart. But in this
oh, my brother Christ, if you love the Lord of the Rings, don't watch that Amazon bullshit then. Do not watch the Amazon bullshit if you love the Lord of the Rings. Do yourself a favor, because...
quest to reclaim the forgotten currency of sincerity, we might have gotten something even better. We might just rediscover that the most epic tales are the ones that dare to be genuine, to be earnest, to embrace the sublime beauty of unfiltered truth.
1 second, Cass.
You're waiting for me to make a joke, aren't you? To relieve the tension after that emotional monologue. Well,
yep,
I'm not going to. Thanks for watching.
Alright. Well, I did disagree with some of his points. I will admit, I did disagree with some of his points. But not a bad video at all.